we could have had this type of discussion earlier in the process. That being said, when it comes to equipment, who has to pay for that? Can you actually have the kids pay for their own equipment, uniforms?
Well, generally what we've done is anything that they keep, they pay for. Anything that we keep, we pay for. There's a difficulty in some of the equipment. When you're talking about protective equipment, like in football, baseball, batting helmets and such, if the student provides those, who's making sure that those have been recertified for use? Each year our football helmets and our baseball batting helmets go out to be recertified. They're tested, they're checked to make sure that everything is fine, and then they're sent back to us. And if they don't pass the test, they're eliminated. We have to purchase new ones. Now, if we have a student purchase a football helmet, how are we going to, make sure that he's going through the proper certification process? It becomes a lot more difficult to certify that. And then if we're allowing him to play in equipment that's not certified, where does the liability fall? Does it fall on the student? Does it fall on us?
My question really is, when you talk, there's apparently guidelines and ceilings placed on the amount of money you can actually pay to play. But would the pay to play also have a ceiling, or would it pertain to equipment? You're the one who brought that. You knew that statute is.
Yep, the legislation addresses just the fee for pay to play.
And that's what I'm saying, could you get around that ceiling price by actually having the athletes buy their own equipment? So say, for example, I thought it's $50 something?
$50 per student.
Okay, so it's $50 pay to play, but the equipment, whatever it is, basketball shirt, pants are another $50. So would that be an item that would go towards $50 pay to play, or would it be $50 pay to play and $50 for the shorts and the shirt?
The difficulty with uniforms is that when you go to try and replace individual sets of uniforms, is trying to get something that you can, very often you can't match what you purchased 3 years ago. So you would have mismatched uniforms, which, I guess some people could say that that's not an important thing, but when you start talking about team, building and camaraderie and things like that, those types of things do matter to the students, to the players. But having them purchase their own uniforms and equipment, I think is something that would be a very difficult thing to do. I think that the cost of those would become, a basketball, when you're talking about 2 sets home and away, you're talking probably about, over $200 for a set of basketball uniforms.
Well, I mean, when you talk about people paying to play things, you look at the music program, you talk to the parents of students who participate in the music program. Some of these parents are paying $500 to $1,000 for instruments. Right. So if people I'm not saying, I'm just looking at the options we have as we go forward. The second thing is, you talked about ambulance. Is it your recommendation that we can eliminate $7,200
Yes.
for the upcoming season? So
it would be my recommendation that we do not need to park an ambulance out there at the football game.
So we can reduce your budget by $7,200 for the ambulance? Mm-hmm. And would your recommendation also be to eliminate the $9,200 for police?
Well, again, we spoke about that in a meeting I had with the administrative team, and we need to have discussion with the police department regarding that. In some of my side discussions, I've found that it can be a difficult situation because they, I guess, get to determine how many policemen actually come to the game, is from what I understand. So I don't know that for a fact. I haven't had a conversation with the police department yet. I've been waiting to go forward based upon what, what I'm charged with from the board.
Two more questions. One question is transportation costs. What the swim team, for example, do they start at the Torrington High School at 2:45? We put them in a bus and we transport them to the Y, or are they responsible for their own transportation?
They're responsible for their own transportation to the YMCA and getting home from the YMCA. The golf team, similarly, when they go to Torrington Country Club for their practices and matches, they're responsible for getting to the country club. So it's up to the parents to make sure they get them there.
Okay, for example, baseball, they play games down at the park. We bus them. Or we don't bus them.
They don't bus them for home games.
We don't
They
bus
get
them.
to the park.
So there is no law or requirement that we actually have to bus kids to their practice facilities?
No, not, that's the way I understand it. That's been our past practice in the athletic department.
How about when it's a game time? You brought up the issue of $72,000 for transportation. I'm just trying to get some input from you for this upcoming year. Are there some ways that we can reduce that number by having these athletes pick up the cost of their transportation by getting to the games without us having a central pickup and bringing them? I don't know.
Right. I think the difficulty's always been is when they're going to be going outside of town and traveling longer distances, and the safety factor of, are kids going to be riding with kids, or are they going to be going with parents? What is the actual setup going to be, and are there going to be enough parents available at 2:15 in the afternoon to pick the kids up and drive them to Waterbury for a baseball game? I think that's been the the overriding factor as far as transportation. That's again, that's why I think that the consideration of purchasing some mini buses to transport, where we could cut the cost, because we're paying just for the upkeep of the bus, for the purchase of the bus and the upkeep of the bus. We don't have to pay that wait time. We're not paying that driver and the bus company to have a bus sitting there at $54 an hour. And when they go to the when they go to the state swim meets, they're there sometimes 6-7 hours, or the big indoor track meets and outdoor track meets. Buses are there for a significantly long period of time for a 45-minute trip down and a 45-minute trip back.
Well, we do know through rescheduling the music department transportation this year that if the bus is going to sit for more than 2 hours, you can release the bus, and you only pay for the trip down and the trip home if you take all your stuff off the bus. Because we've done that with the music department this year. Is we specified this is a drop off, pick us up in 4 hours. And as long as you release that bus, then you're not charged for the bus. You're only charged for the travel time down and then the travel time to bring them back. Our bus company will do that.
Last question is on the swimming program. Again, I'd like to see our costs as far as our rental fees become more competitive. I know that, like I said before, CJR isn't quite as nice as the Y. Is Lewis Mills available? Do they
They don't have a pool, no. They swim out of a club in Bristol, I believe. I don't know what so
I believe it's Health Tracks.
health tracks. But,
Line Chippen's Hill.
but they do that now. The YMCA, that's a large amount of money when you figure that they're heating that water, they're filtering that water, and they're heating the room whether our swim team is in there or not. So they're basically getting that money for turning the lights on, because there's no way that they can program that pool and make that same amount of money that they're making on us. And that's, I think, the thing that I think about when I look at the amount of money we spend there, is that they've got an awful high, electric bill.
And we've gone through this discussion my first year on the board, and it was quite a political controversy, to say the least. But they're not an organization that seems to have much budging on when it comes to reducing their fee. Whatever reason they feel they need to be around that $45,000 mark, I don't know what it is, and it's not really my concern, but
Where are they gonna come up with that $45,000 or $50,000 if we stop our swim programs? Where's the?
But that's not our issue. The
I know,
issue
but
is whether or not we can look for next year. Is it feasible to actually be assured that we have an alternative place to swim next year, so as to give them real numbers and say 45 is not going to make it this year, and
Yeah, like I said, the CJR pool, 15 to 17,000 for basically the same amount of practice time as we use at the YMCA. It's a little bit more problematic in the wintertime. In the fall, it's a lot easier because there's no other girls programs around but ours. There are other programs that use the CJR pool in the wintertime, so it would become a little bit more problematic. But again, these are things where if the decision is made to look at other things, people have to understand that it's going to be an inconvenience for people to get to, to get to those pools, to do that. And it's not the best situation, but I don't know that we can continue to pay $50,000 to turn the lights on at the YMCA pool.
okay, then my last question is,
Cheryl has an answer.
Oh, okay.
When I talked to CJR, maybe you did too, Mike, it would be competing with like 4 other schools and using it. So we might have a 7:30 a.m. or a 6:30 a.m. Time to get up there and practice, which, is not, just conflicts with our school schedule. But the other thing too is we have one of the largest teams going in Connecticut, and it doesn't have as many lanes, it's not as big, and it would be difficult for the kids to practice there to how they practice in the Y.
what's the Bristol facility charging? I mean, it's not.
I don't know.
These swimmers are, Mr. Trout knows, their passion for the swimmers to get up at 3 in the morning, go swim for 5 hours. It's,
I don't know if I'd quite say a passion. It's more of a drag to get them there at 3 a.m.
but they aren't all like that. They learn that at like 2 years old, if not earlier.
We have a call into the Y, and they're going to get back to us next week.
I spoke with Greg Briscoe informally, and he said that we could sit down and see what could be done to support us. He would hate to see the program at the high school diminish, the lack of space to practice.
I got a lot.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Ellen? Yes.
You indicated that you want more games for JV and freshmen, for them to play more games. Is the competition out there? Because a lot of schools have eliminated JV and freshmen or went to pay to play. I mean, are the teams out there?
I have to tell you that we are one of the strongest athletic programs around. And I get phone calls every day from athletic directors in the league who say, today, Derby has 10 girls out for their softball team, so they're not going to be able to have a JV program. I don't know how they're going to have a varsity program with only 10 girls. So they're not going to be playing JV. But Holy Cross would play us 5 times. So the schools that are the solid athletic programs at the sub-varsity level, we might play more than twice. I think in freshman girls basketball this year, I think we played Watertown 3 times, and it was a very competitive game. All 3 games were very competitive, and the girls got a lot out of it. So Are there games out there? Yeah, you have to be creative with your scheduling, and we can find the games for them. Unfortunately, adding games adds cost, and though the coaches would love to have, I talked with Mike Fritsch and Chris Fritsch at the end of the soccer season, and I said to Mike, what's the one thing you want for next year? And he says, a full slate of JV games. And, so we want 16 games. We have right now, what I budgeted for were for 16 JV soccer games. When it comes down to it, when you have rainouts that don't get rescheduled and such, they're probably going to play 13 or 14 games. But, that's what we try to do. But there are teams like, freshman baseball will sometimes end up with a lower schedule with freshman girls basketball. One reason why we played Watertown 3 times was because they started the season with their schedule only had 9 games on it. So we had to find some other games. So we were trying to pull in some other schools to play. So we played, trying to think of who it was. We were only scheduled to play them once. We played them twice. We played them on a separate day. So we try to find those games for them.
Is that all within the NBL?
Within the NBL, yeah. We have scheduled outside. We do schedule outside the NBL. Boys basketball played Gilbert this year, and that was a triple header. The girls basketball team played Avon in a triple header. So that, those were outside the league. We've played other schools. We do sometimes schedule with other schools for sub-varsity games.
Public schools?
Public schools, yeah.
No
But,
private?
no, we haven't had any, any games with any of the private schools, no.
Or scrimmages or anything?
No.
Is that a possibility?
Well, you, Sacred Heart, Holy Cross.
Well, yeah, but, within our league, the Catholic schools within our league, we participate with, but, the Hotchkisses and Taps and things like that, no, we don't schedule. We do okay with scheduling for our younger teams, but we want to make sure that we have a full schedule. We go into the season, schedule goes out, like now, softball schedule is out. Everybody says, we're ready to go play softball now. Well, Kennedy's having a problem, they're having enough kids for their JV team, so they're going to play on opposite days. Well, that creates a little bit more difficulty for us in that normally when we would play a team, we would go to play Kennedy and Waterbury. The varsity JV team get on one bus and they drive down. Now if we want to go play Kennedy, and they can't play because they don't have enough girls to have 2 games going at once. That means if we're going to go play Kennedy down there, we have to get another bus and we have to go to Waterbury and we have to take another bus trip, which is an added expense. So we, we don't want to do that, but in order to get, the proper number of games, we do schedule on opposite days when we can't ride on the same bus.
Has it become more prevalent if they're less and less?
I think we have had some issues with the smaller schools in our league. Aunt Sonia has no freshman sports. Except in football, they eliminated their JV team and have a freshman team. They decided to do that. But the rest of they don't have any freshman sports for the rest of their teams. They have, Derby. They had a difficult time fielding teams they had, and I think when we played them in girls basketball this year, they didn't have enough girls to field a JV team, so we just played one game. And some other schools have had those issues. We don't have those issues.
Have students left the sport because they weren't able to play enough?
I think the schools there just got so small. Derby's a very, in our school, I don't think so. Our program is growing. We got 137 kids out for track.
Well,
We
right,
had-
but I'm saying JV and freshmen, if there aren't enough games for them to play or.
Yeah, if that were the case,
Have they
absolutely.
left?
I think they would leave, and I think if you saw, you see the numbers, our greatest number of participants are the freshman and sophomore classes. And, as the kids get older, they have other interests that creep in, and they decide that, they're getting out of sports or they're, they're getting a job, things like that. So, so our freshmen and sophomores, and if we do not have the programs for them, if we do not have a significant number of games, that's going to become an issue.
Vincent?
Just sort of to piggyback off that, I would just like to see some more quality for JV games. You mentioned that JV football has a full schedule, but other sports do not. I would just like to see some more quality. I experienced that in high school too, playing a sport that wasn't really popular. I'm not sure if that's the reason why or whatnot, but it sounds like that there's definitely opportunity for us to have a full schedule for other sports as well. And I would support cut to the ambulance. Our response time in town is great. And I'm wondering if maybe we can incorporate our EMT program at the high school, maybe somehow have those EMT students down there to help in the meantime before the ambulance shows up.
We do have a certified athletic trainer that works for us, and at our varsity football games, we do have a physician on the sidelines.
Mine's kind of related to Ellen's question. With the proliferation of kind of community sports leagues and competitive travel leagues, I was hoping you could help me justify what's kind of the point then of having freshmen and JV at the school level when the community's kind of filling that need as well.
Well, again, it's a total program. If we can't, if we want to change how the kids act, if we want to build character, we can't rely on a club team to necessarily do that. And I'm sure you've heard the horror stories about club programs the way I have. We run into problems here every year when an athlete comes out for a team and they're not good enough to be a starter on the team, and we get some angry parents sometimes who say, but their premier coach said that they're going to get a Division I scholarship. Well, the premier coach also wants his $4,500. So there's a little conflict there that comes into play. So I don't think that the club programs, though they probably teach skills and do all the things they're supposed to do as far as teaching the sport, I don't know that we can count on them to do as good a job at building character and teaching them the responsibility and the accountability. I've heard numerous instances where the best player doesn't necessarily have to come to practice. I've experienced it with my own son, he's playing junior hockey. He's a senior here at Torrington High School, and there have been players who missed a whole week of practice and then show up on Saturday and they're out there every third shift. And other players who come to practice and work hard and do all the things they're supposed to do aren't getting the same amount of playing time. And I think one of the things that I definitely get across to our coaches here, and if you could ask any one of them who might be here in the room, they understand my feelings on this, is that you need to abide by a certain set of rules. You need to come to practice. You need to do your work. You need to earn your playing time. That's what you learn out of sports. You learn to come and hard work gets you where you need to be.
Yeah, I just want.
Quick one, still over now.
I know, I realize that. About the pool, I would like to hear. Can we come up with that number for the next meeting?
Yes.
From the Y.
Providing we can get together with the Y. I mean, we're fighting with their schedule when they're available.
All right.
To sit down and discuss it. I mean, the effort is out there.
All right, because if there isn't any consideration for the YMCA, I've heard this for so many years now, okay? And they are part of this community, clearly. They have to understand what we are going through. And if they're going to hold our premier, our elite swim team program hostage, then I think we need to take some decisive action if they're not willing to. Clearly, the success of our athletes and our swim team program reflect well on them. And they need to somehow acknowledge that and giving us some consideration to continue the program at their facility. Otherwise, we'll find an alternative to that facility. And I would like to absolutely validate what Mr. McKenna says. My daughter played premier soccer for many years. Their mission is precisely what I was saying before. It's exactly the opposite of what we are hopefully trying to do with our athletic program, which is basically be a developmental program for leaders and positive reinforcement of school values. They're all about the wins. They're all about the wins, all about the wins. So they're very different. They have a very different mission statement, and it's not the same thing. Thank you.
I just had two clarifying questions. One of your options was regarding the booster clubs or parent volunteers. Are you meaning the team's parents, or are you also looking at the booster club that does the tickets for all of our missions?
Okay, the Booster Club has kind of, their role is, the best I can understand it, and I shouldn't speak for them, but the best I understand it is their role has really become diminished as far as, you know, they do provide some things for some of the teams. I believe they did provide money for the baseball team, purchasing a new pitching machine for the batting cage. They do put on the Hall of Fame. They are the the caretakers of the Hall of Fame and putting on the Hall of Fame dinner. But we have individual groups of parents for each team. There's, you know, and again, I know I'm you know, my phone is probably lighting up even as I'm saying this, but to have all those individual groups out there raising money to put on a banquet at the end of the year for the students and to give, you know, gifts to the seniors as they leave, which is all well and good, but that money is money that they raise through the community, and if we could raise that money and put it into a central booster organization to have to you know, and to build the amount of money you need to build is going to take some time, but you know, if we could start, you know, now we've got a chance of doing something, but we need to re-examine, you know, why it is that, you know, Mr. Cavanero said, why is it that we do sports? Why is it that? You know, I'm willing to have that discussion. You know, my wife and I had a long discussion last night regarding this issue and why it is. What is the purpose of sports in public school? And you know, and it's a complicated question. I don't think one person can sit here and give you that answer. All I can tell you is that you know, the importance of the program, you know, to the number of students that are participating. We're talking about at a third or more of the students at Torrington High School are involved in athletics in the course of the year is tremendous, and you know, they count on it. And to possibly lose some of that because we're fighting over who's going to put on the best banquet at the end of the sports season. And again, it's probably coming out wrong, and I'm sorry if I'm offending anyone, but it just seems to me to be, you know, really kind of, you know, against what we really should be out here and the reason why we play sports. What's the intrinsic value of playing a sport? You know, yeah, you know, everybody wants to get better in skill, and everybody wants to win. Okay, a good friend of mine, Paul Denzo, you know, when he used to coach football here, he used to say to the kids, how come you don't want to win? And the kids would say, we want to win. And he'd say, no, you like to win. You don't want to win. You don't want to do the things. You don't want to come to practice on time. You don't want to put in a good 2 hours of work on the practice field. You don't want to do the things that are going to make you a winner. And if you do that, if you do the work in the classroom and you show up on time and you do the work and you do all of those things that we consider to be important aspects of an athletic program, the wins will follow.
Right.
I truly believe that. And I've seen good coaches who do that over and over and over again. You don't have to cut the corners. You don't have to do things halfway. Okay? It isn't just about winning, but the wins will follow.
My point on the Booster Club is I'm confused as to how a segregated group sells the tickets for admission to our games to the students. The parents believe that that money is going to the athletic budget, and the board is spending $500,000 a year. So when I looked at that, I thought maybe we were looking at the structure of those tickets.
Well, what, I'm confused now.
At the beginning of
The
the
Booster
year.
Club sells a Booster Club ticket. And that goes to the Booster Club, which they raise money. They do support our athletic program. Like I said, they purchased the pitching machine. They've done other things for other teams during the course of the years. They also put on the Hall of Fame banquet. They've established the Hall of Fame. They put that on. That's part of what their purpose is. They don't actually sell the tickets at the game and take the ticket money.
No, I know that, but all the students, that's where they're getting their tickets for their.
No, it's a very small number of students actually buy the Booster Club tickets.
All right, I mean, I would like to see that looked into, just that structure.
And
Who's actually making money off of athletics, and we're paying all the money out? I guess we really want to know.
right, and we have a partnership going right now with the Varsity Alumni Club, which has established a site to sell Raider paraphernalia, shirts, hats, such. Auntie Sue wants to buy something for Christmas, they can go on, they can get that. The money that they make off of that goes half and half. It'll come to the athletic department, and it'll go into their scholarship fund, which benefits up to 6 students a year of $1,000 each for their scholarship fund. So we have that going now. So we're going to see money out of that. They're going to have their scholarship fund benefit. So there are some partnerships that we have going like that are helpful to us.
So now, do you see that your role would be to kind of oversee all of these different things that are going on?
I'm already overseeing most of what's going on, but we do have some, I don't oversee what's going on with the parents group. Parents of XXX team. I don't have any connection to them. I don't have any say over what they do. I don't have any jurisdiction over them in them raising money. So that becomes a concern.
And my second question is just, with this new proposed legislation, they're saying that we would not be able to charge a pay money for students that are on free and reduced lunch. Do you know what percentage of our athletes, current athletes, are on free and reduced lunch?
I'm not sure, Mrs. Batchelor, you have that?
How many athletes do we have?
We have,
So a third.
yeah.
Of the 467 total members of athletes participating, how many of those are 2 and 3 sport players? So that number is not necessarily 467.
Right. If you look at the 2011, even this year's numbers for the first 2 seasons, you see there's 2 graphs. There's one that has total participation, and there's one that has unique. The unique is the single athletes, the number of single athletes that have participated, and the total is the total number. I don't know exactly how many sports each one plays, but it'll tell you how many are multiple sport athletes. How many
Look at
multiple?
this year, Andrew, the 12-13, there's, in the top, there's 467. Yep.
Okay.
That's total athletes participating. But if you go to the chart below it where it's 371,
Right.
that's the actual number of kids. So that means that we have roughly 90 kids playing 2 sports.
And didn't you say the law is that you can only, for a 2 or 3
$200.
sport, it's $150 a month?
Was it?
I thought you said it's 50 for one and then
It
one
was,
sport.
it was 2 something, I think 225. I think it was 225.
Total?
Total for a family.
Oh,
For a
family.
family.
Oh, okay.
So if you have 3 kids,
Playing 3 sports.
3 sports, it's capped. Okay. Thank you very much. That's an excellent presentation. On to special education.
people don't always understand the premise behind special education. As you know, we have a lot of mandates that we have to respond to. And the core mandates are driven by mandates that are created by the state as well as by the federal government. Those are all based on the Americans with Disabilities Act, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and various civil rights and civil rights compliance acts. All students with identified disabilities are entitled to a free and appropriate public education. And that doesn't mean just the children who attend our public schools. It includes the children who, for whatever reasons, have been placed in private special education schools. The Board of Education is responsible for all costs related to that. Parents, we are not allowed under the law to charge parents for any of the costs that are related to special education as it is outlined in each individual child's IEP. What is appropriate is determined by the pupil planning and placement team, where an individual educational plan is developed. And what that means is a child who receives special education has to have a plan that helps them to succeed in general education curriculum. And we now have to align them with the Common Core standards. We also have to make sure that the children who are receiving special education receive specially designed instruction. An IEP is a legal document and must be implemented. Failure to do so is likely to lead us to due process. There are two levels of due process. One is mediation. The second is actual due process. Both require us to get a hearing officer from the state who is objective and listens to all sides. And then the contents of the IEP is determined with the input from a school administrator, special education teachers or case managers, specialists such as psychologists, social workers, parents, parent advocates, and the student if they are over 16 years of age. I just recently received a copy of the new regulations that have been approved by the State Board of Education that will be going to the legislature for to be voted on within this present assembly. Most of the regulations basically clarify definitions. They take some things out, they put some things in. But some of the big ticket items here for us to pay attention to has to do with supervision. There's always been in the regulations a standard for how many supervisors you need to have based on the number of special ed teachers, support staff, etc. But what the new regulations have done is clarify that even more clearly. Right now, the new regulations say you need to have one certified special education supervisor to the equivalent of 15 to 29 full-time special instructional staff, 2 supervisors to the equivalent of 30 to 49, and 1 additional supervisor for every 25 over that. At the moment, we have 49 special education teachers, and you have me as the supervisor. It goes on to say that if you have less than 15, you need to have a person in each discipline, such as a psychologist, social worker, guidance counselor, nurse, occupational therapist, school health services. You also need to have one of those people be assigned as the coordinator for each one of those areas, which would require us to pay each one of those people a stipend. And then there is a certified administrator who oversees all of that. The other things that we need to make sure that we are doing, and we are doing them, is child find at the private schools within our town. We already do child find with the 2 private parochial schools. We do evaluate students in both schools. What we do not do is we do not provide direct service. We provide a service plan which is based on consultation and the provision of materials should the schools request provision of materials for those students. In the past, we have also provided speech and language by appointment if parents want to bring their children into the district schools for appointment speech and language. They are forming committees statewide now to help in the process with the private schools and talk about the provision of special education services within those schools. And ultimately, it will probably lead to us having to hire itinerant staff to go into those schools. The other thing in the new regs is the discussion now more and more of using electronic devices, iPads, notebooks, communications skills, microphones that they can use with computers, all of those kinds of things. We are already addressing assistive technology for students, and I will tell you it is a costly thing that we do, but by law, we have to make sure that we address the need of every student in those areas. The other things that are in the new regs we pretty much are doing, but there's a cost to many of them that we are already budgeting for. I was asked by the board to look at the organization compared to when I first arrived in 2004 to where we are now. In 2004, we had 4 administrators in the Department of Special Education. We had 6 secretaries. We had 6 psychologists. We had 7 social workers. We had 7 speech and language people. We had 6 occupational therapists, 3 of whom we contracted the services for. We had 40 teachers, 1 teacher of the hearing impaired, and 2 physical therapists that we contract for. In 2012-2013, we have 1 administrator in the department. We have 2 secretaries. We have 4 psychologists. We have 6 social workers. We have 9 speech and language specialists. All 6 of our OTs are district-wide employees of the district. We did that to save money because the agencies charge us a lot. We have 49 special education teachers, 1 hearing impaired teacher, 2 contracted physical therapists. We have 1 sign language interpreter. We have 1 Wilson reading instructor. We have 1 behavioral analyst. We have an out-of-district coordinator, and we have an in-district coordinator, who are not administrators. Thank you. Yes.
They're not administrators?
The in-district and out-of-district coordinators are not administrators. No, they do not hold a 092.
They're part of the team.
We took a snapshot of our numbers in each one of our schools today. Each school has 37 special education students. Forks has 51. Southwest has 50. Torringford has 74. Lower Wetmore has 86. Torrington Middle School has 188. Torrington High School has 171. And we have 91 outplaced students with 1 additional student that we have a mediated agreement. We also have 67 preschool students receiving services. Our out-of-district placements are broken down by 61 are local education placements, 15 are DCF, 1 is a mediated agreement, 72 are parental placements. And the parental placements are in magnet schools, regional schools, explorations, and WMOGO. We have a total of 678 special education students in our district, including the preschoolers at this time.
All right, for one point of clarification, the cost sheet that was passed out includes staff that is in the buildings, and in your budget book, they are listed in the building site plans. If you see under the account 51115 teachers, it lists which school they're carried in, and the same with the social workers. In your book is just the amount that's run through what's called student services, not carried within the school budgets. That's why there's a difference between the two final numbers. So this is an actual listing of everything considered special education. In the budget book, it's called student services because some of them are implanted into the buildings. They're full-time employees of that building, so they're carried in that site budget.
I'd also like to clarify that this is what is paid through general funds and not through grant money that we receive.
Questions, Chris?
On the organizational chart that you handed out, it's noted that we have 813 students, and you just told us that we had 678.
Right, but I was not including some of the out-of-placement numbers. So our total number in the district is 813.
Or 678.
678 includes the students that are in the district.
Okay.
And then you have to add the others.
Two questions. What's a Wilson instructor?
Wilson is a supplemental reading program that we have brought into the district to we brought the reading program into the district because we have children who are, for instance, dyslexic, who are not succeeding in our general education reading program. And so we brought the Wilson program into the district.
Okay, so that's a proprietary program.
Correct.
Okay. And next question I asked at the last meeting last week. What of our special ed expenditures are not mandated?
They're all mandated.
Every single thing that we see here and here is a state mandated program. Or
Correct.
federal. Okay, thank you.
And it's backed up by your individual education plans that are developed at a PPT.
And it's all part of the free and appropriate public education.
Mr. Burrell, so 504 legislation will fall under your department?
No.
No.
504 is regular education, and actually, Mr. Jocelyn covers that.
Okay.
I need to be able to look at it, so I'm hoping that we can rediscuss this at next week's meeting.
Okay, first one, early childhood account, 50-12-48. You're saying that is mandated?
Yes.
And what does
That's-
early childhood actually mean?
It means that we have to do child find, and it's for the students who are 3 to 5 years of age.
They may already be receiving support services through First 3 or other,
It's mostly first 3, but oftentimes we'll get referrals from parents or from physicians when they know that there's a problem.
Second question is, what is the projected number of students you're going for 13/14? I mean,
That's
you said-
hard, I don't mean to skirt that question, but I can tell you on a daily basis, our numbers go up and down. So I would, guess that we will be close to that for next year. we have gone down in our total numbers over the last several years because of response to intervention. But there's no way for me really to predict how many kids we're going to have. And we have students who move in and out, students who age out of services, students who graduate, and there's always students coming in. For instance, 3 years ago, we had 119 referrals for special education in preschool. 2/3 of them qualified. Last year, we had 96. This year, at this time, being the end of March, we've already had close to 90.
So the fact that you're basing your budget on the same 813 number of students in special ed, how are you, I mean, it's fantastic that you're, and I wish all our budgets were coming in the way your budget is coming in with such a, what is it, 10, 15%? No, you're looking, what are you looking at, 8% decline?
I'm sorry, just to clarify, this is 10, it goes 10 years back. When you see 2013 projected amount, that's
Right.
for the year 12-13. This is not 13-14.
Oh, okay, where's her budget for?
That's in the budget book.
That's-
But
Tell me that number. Oh, I don't-
student services did go down this year. It's, right.
It's 10,595,158.
That number, projected amount, which is total actual amount, is now down 10 million?
No, you
Well,
can't use that though.
This 13 million includes staff that's carried in other budgets within this book. Anyone that has a school name after it is, we were asked for a total special ed cost.
Right.
Instead of just student services cost. So some of this cost is embedded into Thornport, Forbes, Vogel.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay.
I understand. We're looking at the same number going from 04 to 13, which this is 12-13.
Correct.
12-13. And now I'm saying to you, what is this number for 13-14?
I don't have that. I can get that for you for next week, but I don't have that because in the budget book, it's broken out by school. That's how our budget books are reflected.
Okay.
Because we need to know all the staff within each school.
But this total number is the actual number that you personally, as the special ed director, are responsible for.
Correct.
So when I'm asking you what your total budget you oversee on this flow chart, what is your bottom line number for 13-14?
I can get that to you next week because I have to add up all the special ed teachers in each school, all the psychologists, all the social workers. In our budget book, it's not separated that way, it's separated by school. Mr. Cavanero asked for a snapshot of everything that encompasses special ed.
And this is great. I mean, this is what she's responsible for. This
Right.
year, she was responsible for $13,524,935. And what I'm saying is, what is your number? I'm not being adversarial, just saying it would have been nice to know in analyzing this where your budget is for next year.
I'm sure Danielle can give you that number next week. I do know that I came in less than this
Oh,
year.
even less than 13?
Correct.
Yes.
And then I guess the only other question for you is, it's great that you keep, obviously we've done, either we have less students or whatever, but from the peak of 09 to 12-13, that's really fantastic for the school district that these numbers have declined. So to go 10% down in appreciating costs for all of these services, that's truly amazing. But that being said, is there any recommendations that we can still cut to
Not really.
Been doing this long, Andy?
What's that?
Been doing this long?
Not really. I mean, we're really very close to the best in this budget. And one of the things that we have been able to do that has helped to reduce our costs is expand programming here in the district. And with the RTI, the number of students who have not had to be made eligible for special education because of response to intervention, that has helped us a great deal too.
And being that we have you, I have you here right now, being that we as a board are always looking to our legislators to give them ideas on becoming more lean, being and more efficient in producing and giving you services, are there any suggestions that you have for some of these things that may be modified?
I have to be honest with you. They're just adding more responsibility.
Not what we want to hear.
Right.
I mean, you heard it from Mr. McKenna tonight, and unified sports, so that we can provide sport programs for our students with special needs.
Okay, thank you.
Danny?
Quick question for you. Do we hold somebody in-house, an MD, either a district medical coordinator or somebody that we bring in to all the IEPs for special education to sit down and make sure that all the medical information is updated yearly when we sit down and produce the new IEPs?
Usually if there's a child who has medical problems, usually the physician that takes care of that child, if there's any additional information, we get that from the physician for the PPTs.
Okay.
But we don't have an in-house person. The nurses will often sit in to PPTs if the child is getting some type of medical intervention during the school day, or even if they're on medications that they take before school. The nurses are aware of that, and,
Okay, but
and we
there's
get the
no one
updates.
on the district side to sit down to represent the district in the IEP versus the child's medical doctor.
No, and there's a reason for that.
Well, I know Hartford does it in a lot of large school
Yeah.
districts. They have medical doctors who sit down, who represent the district in the PPTs and for the IEPs.
And that,
And there are differences.
And there are differences, but it's a slippery slope.
How so?
Because if, for instance, we can give parents information about their child if we suspect that they have an attention problem. But we cannot diagnose attention deficit disorder, because if we do, then we have to pay for the medical costs. So we don't do that, obviously, and I'm not their doctor, and I wouldn't even presume to do that. So that, you've got to be careful with the medical stuff.
I was just curious whether there was somebody in-house who represented the interest of the people of Torrington as well.
No.
Okay.
Excuse me. Thank you for doing this. This is a great piece of work here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for, I think pretty much is what you were looking for too, right?
It explains, right.
Tells the story, right? Yeah, and I agree with Fiona. I think this deserves to be really vetted out next, the next meeting. One thing I'd like to see, is there, and if I were decent at math, if I do it, a per pupil cost, we see that just from the beginning and end from the first year to last year. I'd like to see how that may have changed per pupil cost. And then the bigger question, Beth, which has to do with, one of the reasons I think this was asked, certainly from my point of view, I wanted it spelled out, is the bigger picture to the community. We're supposed to be here educating the community about why these costs are. And this goes to what we are mandated to pay for this. You're telling us this is all.
Correct.
Okay. I would like to see just some links so we can quickly find out where we could, the board, none of this is discretionary. You don't feel as the special ed coordinator that
I don't have
you're
to.
playing it safe on
No.
things? No.
No.
This is simply cut and dry.
Correct.
All right. And,
Under the, just so you know, under the special education laws,
yeah,
we have to provide adequate, free and appropriate public education. We do have parents who ask us for the Maserati,
yeah.
and we
Okay.
don't have to meet that, so I,
Subjectivity is the word adequate.
yes.
Okay, all right. And last thing, and maybe the budget isn't for this, but just a brief, do we have, is there, how as a school district, we have to do this, but clearly this is the wider program to regular education that has been going for 20 years and has significantly changed the entire profile of what public education is about and how we fund it. Is there any way to speak to the success of this way, not what you are doing, not what Torrington is doing, but just, does this work? Is this working? We can evaluate our regular ed kids. We have tons of ways of testing those. Do we know if this is really getting what?
We have to administer a form of right now, the CMT and the CAP for all children. That includes children with special needs. And
Is performance on that really the right test for what these kids actually need in life and what we're spending all this money on?
well,
I know it's more philosophical, it's probably not subject to the budget because we're stuck doing this, but at another time, I think I would just like to hear that.
Well, I do need to tell you that every,
Is that really what these kids really need to be tested on?
well, we do different types of testing. Every 3 years, we are mandated to do what we call a triennial review.
Yeah.
And we must reassess students to see how they've progressed, if they're still eligible for special education, and if their programs are meeting their needs. That's over and above our annual meetings where we discuss their progress.
Are there needs just to find the ability to take a CMT test?
No,
See,
no.
you're looking
I
at
mean,
specific skills, you have to.
right, I mean, it can be anything. I mean, there are a number of categories under which students become eligible for special education.
Yeah.
And it goes from teaching children life skills, just how to dress themselves, feed themselves, all the way up to being successful with regular education, grade level material.
This really is part of the budget, and I apologize, I don't want to derail it, but another time.
Just one other, do you have the breakdown of what the revenue stream is, other than our portion?
There's no revenue. Oh, you mean from the state and
Yeah.
grants? That's all in your budget book. All grants
Well, I
are
mean, in
listed
this
in the
budget.
budget. No, that is just from general fund money.
Right, is there any chance?
Yeah, it's
like
in-
You do it just from 4 to 13, what, the outside?
Yeah, but what they did is they didn't put any costs in here that are funded by an outside source. This is,
You're saying
this is only general fund.
13,524 is our
Just-
money.
It's just your money,
It's
correct?
general fund money. That's no grants. That's why if you look at the teachers, it's gonna differ from the spreadsheet that Beth passed around because we pay for certain teachers out of our IDEA grants.
And I can tell you that what we've been getting in our IDEA grant has been going down.
And it small pays for salaries.
But that's why I kind of like to have seen what,
It's on page 23 of your general.
Well, I think what Andrew wants to see, the question was like, as Paul had asked for and John had asked for, was total cost of special education.
Yes.
You can put a line item down the bottom that says 1.3 million grants, and then give us,
I wish.
no, I'm just picking them up, $1. You could say that, it's $13,524,936.07 minus $1 worth of grant, our net is this. Because that way we see, we're trying to wrap our mind around the total department.
Okay.
We don't want to keep getting it in pieces. We want to get the whole thing, and then you can show us, either print them on here in red, ones that are covered in grant, so that we see that at the bottom, or however you can, color it, with grant, however you want to do it.
Okay.
I thought some of our students that may cost us like a couple $100,000, a certain portion is our cost, and then the state or the federal government,
Yeah,
whichever
that's
picks up that. That was what I was hoping to see, what.
That's excess cost, and I think our threshold last year was $70,000, and anything above that, we got excess cost back.
4.5 times the cost of people with special.
Right.
So that's 70,000.
I'm not sure about that number exactly, but it seems to ring a bell in my head. So
It's never been fully funded.
it's never full, it has never been fully funded. So whatever, there's a threshold that they set each year, and once we hit that threshold, then anything above that, we can get 70% back.
And does that excess of 70,000, is that reflected in this 13?
No.
No, so we're not,
This is just general fund money, because excess costs goes to the city as revenue. Not to bring up that topic, but we don't
It gets
see.
applied to the
We don't
budget,
see
but
it.
it's on the revenue side where it reduces the amount of money the city has to give us.
but it's our cost.
It's our revenue. It's our cost, and they record
But
the
it's
revenue.
not our cost on this sheet, it's somewhere else in our cost structure.
It is our cost.
It's our
But
cost,
it's
but it's
not
not our
this
revenue.
13 million.
That 13 million is used to calculate the excess cost
So
that the city receives in revenue back. Okay. You have a
Does everybody else
child-
understand this,
No.
or am I?
All right, what they do is they take a student, and they go 4.5 times our amount of money. Say, student is $10,000.
Okay.
So at $45,000, the state says, we will reimburse you 100%, okay? 4.5 times. The problem is they've never funded that at 100%. 1 year was 72%, 1 year was 68%. Depends how much money they have, what they give out at the end of the year. What they're saying on this sheet, that's gonna change for next week, right? Okay. It's going to have all of our costs. It'll have the grants either in a different color or however they want to delineate it. Positions covered by grant. So you'll see our total cost at the bottom minus the grant revenue we get, and that'll have our total revenue, our total cost. Now, the revenue from the state, the city records that on our revenue sheet, which is page 14, I think, or 16.
16. 16.
I guess like 3 numbers to cover this. If you go to page 16. Yeah.
Where's,
Under state of Connecticut, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, down, agency placement / excess costs.
Yep.
It should look like this, you see it?
yeah, I just, yeah, okay.
So that's where the town gives us back that revenue.
How much is the student being reflected in the report? The entire